All right, if you're looking to learn programming or just write your first little game, microStudio is probably something you should take a really good look at. I've been looking at game engines and game development and looking for something really simple but powerful. And combining the two, it doesn't always work out. But I think there's enough here that it's worth a shot to give it a try. I've been playing this for a couple of hours, and one of my tests that I normally do with something new is to try and use it without using the demo programs or example programs. Just use the documentation and see how far I can get. And I've actually been impressed how easy this is. So I'm just going to go over some of the things. First, let me just knock myself out of here so you can see the full screen. And let's start with the app. I'm running the offline version, but it's not exactly offline. This is uh, still a web version running in a Windows environment, the package that I downloaded. But it's still basically the exact same thing, and we can tell if we click on this, it brings up basically the same environment. So this is the web version, and it looks identical. It's just packaged slightly different. So yes, there's an offline version, but it's exactly the same. But if the internet ever goes down, at least you can use it without having to worry about getting online. So I'm just going to close that for now. And let's start. Let's first talk about the license. So this is a MIT license, open source, all the good stuff. I haven't seen anything negative about the license yet, but I'll read deeper and maybe there's a gotcha somewhere. But so far it looks like, but you're free to use this for learning and, publishing your games. And in fact, they made it really easy to publish your games. You could export to HTML5 and basically upload your game to all these sites. It's ready to, once you've debugged it and everything, it's ready for sites that support it. And with the online version, so we only have options to export to HTML here, but let's go back to bringing up the browser version. And it's, I guess it's the browser version is updated more frequently. And so if we just let's start a project here, and let's go to the publish option. Now, if we take a look here, we have an option to build for Android. It's in beta, and build for Windows. And let's just see if it works. And it looks like it's building our exe file. I don't know how long this is going to take. It's basically there's nothing really there, but I guess it takes a while. Okay, let's minimize that. We'll come back to it in a bit. And if you want to use the online version, you can use it as a guest. You don't have to create any accounts. You notice I didn't have to create any accounts, but you can create an account. And let's talk about the interface now. Um, you can only work on your code through this editor, so you can't use an external editor at the moment. And there's some rough areas in the interface, but let me just go over some of the things I've learned here. By default, when you start it up, everything is collapsed here, so you can't see the name that says main here. And if you create any additional files and it's minimized there, you can't see it. You have to hover. But if let's say you wanted to rename this, you'd have to double click here, and just changed its name. So I'm calling it Unit 2 now. Um, but let's just look in the all the sections. So this is where you develop your code, and you can increase the font size here and decrease it. And also there's a search option. Uh, One thing to note, if you increase your fonts too big, this will not display properly. So if you get that distorted view, just minimize your fonts a bit. Um, you can resize the editing pane or the output, and also here as well. Now, there's no, you can't do this over here for some reason. Um, I would rather have this kind of option here as well, just in case you have bigger file names or it just more consistent, I think. Anyway, let's move on to the sprite section. So you can create sprites. Let's create a new one. And so you have a few tools. Basically, you have a pencil. Let's just draw some lines here. And let's draw something that we can fill in. Choose blue, select fill, and there you go. But you don't have many other tools basically at this point. So very limited in the number of tools, but you could bring in your own sprites that you can edit in an external program. This one right here, I have my own program that I've designed. Here, let me bring it in. So I drew this in here, saved it as a ping or a PNG, and then I just changed the colors in here. I selected which color I wanted to make transparent, to set the opacity here, and so you have some options to do the same thing. Uh, Now, the only thing I don't like is that you have to drag your external file into this area. And so it's a little inconsistent because if we move on to the sounds area, you can create folders here, and you can uh, so you can add a sound from just by selecting the through the file dialog and create new folders. Uh, but for some reason, this option is missing in the sprite area. You can't create additional subfolders. You can't bring in the sprite through the file dialog. You have to do a drag and drop basically. Try clicking all over it, but so this is something that looks like it's still in the works. It's not appearing here, but hopefully in future versions it will appear here. And so let's look at the sounds again. There's no option to create dynamic sounds like coin drops and fire sounds, or sorry, yeah, any kind of weapon sounds. So you basically have to bring in all that. And same thing with the music. You can't compose anything. There's no tools to like a little piano or any kind of tool to generate any kind of music. I don't know exactly what the doc is here for. Maybe documentation. I'll have to check further. And we have the settings. This is an interesting area. I have the advanced options enabled. Uh, and you have some options with the orientation. You can do portrait or landscape. Um, and you could do the aspect ratio. You can select all kinds of options here, which is nice. I like this option because I hate trying to figure out what size the final render will be in. So this is a nice preset of choices. Very nice. And I don't know exactly how to make libraries or a tutorial at this point. I'll have to look into it. So far, I'm just using the app. And you have a choice of languages. So I'm using microScript 2, which looks like, all the features that I would need. But if you're proficient in Python, Lua, or JavaScript, There's options for that. And you can even, I guess, the revert back to the microscript version 1. Maybe it's a lot more stable. And I guess they also have a transpiled version, which gets, I guess, compiled to JavaScript. And a physics engine and a 3D physics engine. So I'll have to check that. I thought this was only 2D, but maybe it does 3D as well. And again, you can publish to HTML. So the only things that I haven't covered so far is the maps. So you can create all kinds of sprites here. And if you go to the map section, you can use any of those sprite images to create your map. None of these are suitable for creating a map, but I'm going to choose it anyway just to show you that you can build a map. So let's say I create some walls and corridors here. There you go. And basically, you can make your sprites maneuver all over this area. You can there's a way to load in your map and display the map. Anyway, what I wanted to show was a few coding things that I've played around with. So when we started off, I said you should probably, to test this out, try doing things without using the example program just to see how difficult things are. Example programs are a bit tricky because they show you the potential, but they don't show you the difficulty involved in getting there. And try to do something yourself from scratch will show how difficult something is. So I just created a simple program here. So with all game engines or gaming libraries, you basically have an initialization section, an update or an input section, and a rendering or a display option. And this has this as well. So when you start out blank, there's nothing here. This is all information that I put here. And all this does is basically allow me to just move this face left and right and update this counter. And if I hit the letter A, it resets it to what did I set it to? 199. Uh, and let's just go over the variables here. So you have three kinds of variables. You have numbers, strings, and lists. I'm not going to go into lists, but numbers, any numbers basically, positive or negative, and strings are any words or sentences, and you put those in quotes basically. So I have a few examples here. Excuse me. How we can clear the screen. And let's say we wanted to use a different color. Let's say we wanted to do a blue, you know, background color. It's that easy. Or you could specify the RGB colors. There's a format for that. But let's just leave it empty for the moment. You notice that as I did that, it basically updated everything in real time. Anything that doesn't get changed in the initialization area will get updated automatically. So if I change this text here, let's change it to Joe, you can see that it's changed immediately. One of the other nice things about this type of interface here, let's say I click here, which is the X coordinate position of where Joe is displayed. If I click on this, you notice there's now some additional information. So I can change the number here. Let's say I can change this to -90, or I can select this little control here, and I can move it up and down, and it will help me position exactly where I want to display Joe. And if you notice while I'm moving it, it's changing the value here. And I could do the same thing with the y coordinate. And again, hit the control. And now I can make it go up and down. So this really allows you to position your items on the screen very easily. I haven't seen this in too many other things that help you with your interface this easy. And we can do the same thing with the text size. If we specified this as, let's say, just a number, let's choose 20. And if we click on it now and hit the control, we can see that we can make that bigger as well. Now, you can't do this with variables because variables you control and they would change in your program. But if you have a fixed value, you can do this. And that seems to work for pretty much anything. We can do this with the sprite as well. So if we do this, we can make it smaller, make it bigger. And right now, I'm not showing any width, but let's say I wanted to change the width. Sorry, the height. We can do that as well. And everything is still working. I haven't had to stop anything. So let's check out some other parts of the code here. So we can draw sprites, we can draw text, and we can for input we can use the keyboard. You could also use the mouse. There's an option for that, and also a gamepad. So all this is built in. I'm just using the keyboard, and to test for right arrow, I'm just keyboard dot right, and to check for the left keyboard arrow, keyboard dot left. So if that is true, you put your what you want to change after in there. You could also have two separate if statements here, but it does support else if. So if we just did this, it would work exactly the same way. So if I click back here, it still works. So this is slightly more efficient. I just wanted to show that you can, make your code much better. And let's check functions now. So this is another file I created, and I just created a simple function that resets. Let's make that 100. And I don't have to save or anything. There's no save option. It just does it automatically. So if we click back in here, if I hit A, it resets the value. So you notice it starts to reset it back to 100 and it starts counting up again. So we can change this to 500. And if I hit A, it starts at 500. So a lot of this stuff just seems to work like you would expect. Very easy. Now I did find some things that don't necessarily work the way I expected. I made a typo, let's say right here, and I thought my program would stop, but it doesn't. It just seems to keep working on like, it never happened. Even if I reload it, it still doesn't think there's any kind of error. Normally you see errors in the console window, or it would tell you here. But maybe this is one of those silent bugs that got missed, and it seems to, it doesn't necessarily affect this function. It affects every function. Um, so yeah, you gotta watch out for things like that. I think it's still in beta, so yeah, they'll figure it out. And let me see what else. Oh yeah, the help. So this has an interesting help system here. So if we enable that, wherever we click, now we got context sensitive help. And if we need more information, we can view the doc. So remember where you are when you're clicking on things, because you could get lost in this interface. Uh, So what it did when I clicked on help, it just moved us to this tab here where it says documentation. We were here at create. So just remember where you are. So when you click on things, you'll know how to get back. So all it did just move us over here and move us to the area where we can get help on that. Once you're here, though, you could look at help for anything else as well. And let's say you want to see how your program looks in a browser. All you have to do is just click that, and it launches, another tab in your running browser. So again, it works the same way. It looks much bigger now, and that's because remember those settings I was showing you earlier? Let me just go back. So I chose a force, the aspect ratio 4:3. Let's change it to 16:9. And if we go back to here and click on it again, it's hard to see. I'm going to change. I'm in the wrong window. Let's close that. Let's put blue back in here. Oh yeah, you have to put it in quotes. All right. So I'm not sure you can see the slight border here now that's present. So if we launch it into the browser again, we can see the border. Let me close that down again. Let's go to settings. Let's change this to 4:3 now. Go back, launch it again. It's stretching it more than anyway, here you can see like there is a slight difference in terms of the let's choose something else that hopefully let's do square pixels. Let's go back here. There we go. So now you can see that those changes do make it look different in your browser. So you can play around with those just to get the proper feel. And remember, I've only been playing with this for a couple of hours. There's a lot more to discover, but the main thing I want to point out that this is fun. If you're looking for something fun, this is definitely something to check out. I haven't seen anything this good for a long time. So I'm going to leave a link to the microStudio website, but this is something you should definitely check out. So thanks for watching the video.